very good morning, afternoon, or evening to everybody who have joined us today. Today is a very special day because we are starting our digital discussion all the way from the e-Estonia Briefing Center. My name is Annette Noa and I'm a digital transformation advisor here working at the e-Estonia Briefing Center, and I will be also the moderator of today's event here. And besides that, the fact that we're starting our discussion here from our own rooms, this time not in the studio, today is also special because we're talking about one very essential topic that is going to form the future, and this is of course AI. AI is a very important topic for the Estonian government itself. We have replaced around 50 public services already last year by AI technology, and of course we have some ambitious plans also for the future to use AI technology to make our governmental services working even more well, and of course also much more smooth and faster in a way. And of course, besides the public sector, then we also have plenty of private companies who are helping their customers to make their services working also much more smoothly thanks to the AI technology, so that we wouldn't have to spend our time on the very manual tasks that we couldn't use before the AI. So of course also just some kind of information for today's event that of course, like as every time, you're also able to ask your own questions from all of our experts. There is going to be 5 different experts from the private sector, and also Ott Velsberg, who is the Government Chief Data Officer. He's going to talk about how Estonia again has been already used the AI technology and what are our future plans. And so please use this chance to ask your questions from our experts, and there is going to be also 2 panel discussions led by my wonderful colleague Florian Marcus, so you also are able to join this discussion a little bit later as well. But now, without wasting any more time here, I'm happy to ask Ott to come on a stage. But before he can kick off his presentation, we are going to watch also one of the videos. So let's have a look.
Bureaucrat. I'm not sure what there is to talk about, really. What's so special about it anyway? All right. Bureaucrat is merely the official AI-based virtual assistant of Estonia. Honestly, it doesn't do anything that remarkable. Actually, it mostly does completely mundane and sometimes even boring stuff, such as applying for a permit, renewing your identification, or reporting lost documents, applying for family benefits, or borrowing a book for school, standing up for consumer rights, dealing with a fender bender, notifying of vaccinations, identifying mushrooms, and 1,000 other boring things. Now that you've listened to all this, you're probably wondering what you will do with all the free time on your hands. Well, who would know? Who would know?
It's the perfect weather for a day at the beach. I'd recommend taking the electric scooter and hopping on a bus.
With the help of e-Estonia's virtual assistant Bureaucrat, you won't lose any more time solving everyday problems. Pick your preferred device to interact with Bureaucrat and get everything done through one communication channel.
How can I help you?
Hi, my name is Ott Velsberg and I'm the Government Chief Data Officer. As you saw from the previous videos, then Estonia has ambition to really radicalize how we provide public services to citizens and businesses. Today, I'm going to provide a brief overview on how we are building the next generation e-government. But it's first important to go through the basics. In Estonia, we see that the government should be as proactive as possible. We should provide public services to citizens and companies in a proactive, seamless manner. The government should be as little bureaucratic as possible, and we should make decisions based on data. In order to achieve a more proactive government, we are right now building Bureaucrat, which is a virtual government assistant. Similarly, we are developing different personalized and invisible services in order to integrate and combine different public services and really make it easier for the citizens to operate and contact the government. While much of the different services require no AI, some of them actually do. In Estonia, we use KRAT as a synonym to raise the awareness of the risks associated with utilizing artificial intelligence. KRAT was built from hay and stitches and typically carried out different tasks to citizens and people. But you always had to be a little bit cautious because KRAT could actually harm you. So similarly to artificial intelligence, it can bring a lot of benefits, but we need to be aware of the risks associated with it. We started to invest in artificial intelligence in 2018, and back then we only had a couple of AI use cases in the government. Today, AI is used by different government agencies. We have over 80 different AI projects utilized and over 30 different organizations that have carried out AI projects. In order to make it more quick and easier for different agencies to utilize AI, we came up with the concept of KRAT-jupid, AI components. And these are open source components that both the private and the public sector can use. And I must say that even though we have a lot of different AI use cases already in the government, today there are no fully automated processes. AI is there to support people to improve decision making. But now to the more interesting part, how we have actually utilized AI. For instance, Unemployment Insurance Fund today both predicts when people are more likely to become unemployed. They also provide recommendations to people on how to increase their employability. Our Tax and Customs Board is identifying companies that are more likely to evade paying taxes. We are currently in development of a more personalized education. What's the problem here? Typically, the teacher has only time to concentrate on the average student. So those who excel or need more help receive little attention. And the idea of a personalized education is to actually improve that. Similarly, we have carried out different identification projects. For instance, on forbidden advertising in Facebook and other media channels to make sure that illegal alcohol or cigarette or even casino advertisements don't end up being shown to the children. And some of other use cases. Satikas has been used in agriculture to identify if farmers actually mow the farmland or not. Why is this important? The government each year pays out subsidies of roughly 350 million euros. And one of our typical kind of requirements is that the farmers actually have to mow the farmland. Before we utilize Satikas, our government officials had to do on-site inspections. And there was always kind of unclear whether farmers actually mowed the farmland or not. And if the government identified that someone hadn't done so, they typically said that they are just really bad farmers. They already did that in April or March, or they are going to do that in future. After utilizing Satikas, the government each year receives back roughly 600,000 euros. So the project itself pays itself each year. Customer support analytics. After the COVID crisis, we have seen that there's a huge surge and interest in understanding why customers actually contact the government. Here you can see just one of the examples that is provided by FeelingStream. And FeelingStream today is also going to present their solution itself. So customer support analytics, from one way, provides overview of why customers actually contact the government. From another, helps us to improve our public services. And finally, I'm going to talk about reusable AI components. I mentioned that there are different government agencies that have utilized AI, and we have already implemented 6 of them. For instance, textual analytics, Texta Toolkit, has been used by over 20 different occasions and helps from classification of text to identifying what is the sentiment of people and so on. We are also actively investing in Estonian language technology, whether it is in machine translation, transcription, on speech synthesis. Why do we need to do that? Unfortunately, there is little incentive from big companies to invest in Estonian language, so the government itself has to invest and be active. We are right now in process of developing chatbot and process analysis solutions. And next year we are going to work on, for instance, anonymization toolkit, abstract maker, and speech analysis. But first you saw the video about Bureaucrat. Bureaucrat, in a nutshell, is government virtual assistant. And this is how we vision that all different public services should be delivered to citizens and companies in future. It provides citizens one interaction, one contact point to receive all public services in Estonian language, in Russian, in English, and hopefully in a few years' time also through sign language. You can use any device, any means of communication. So we are rethinking of how the interaction with the government actually works. You don't need to use separate information systems. You can use Facebook. You can use just calling or SMSing the government. It is up to the citizen to decide how they want to interact and contact the government. And of course, proactively providing services. If we see that someone is reliable or could receive some benefits, then we should not wait for the citizen to ask the government for allowances or benefits, but we should proactively provide them. We already, in the end of this year, are coming live with Bureaucrat on 3 different agencies. Among them, Police and Border Control and National Library. And all of the Bureaucrat, the base components, they are open source. So everyone, both in Estonia and internationally, can use them. But this is not where we want to stop. We want to provide more services from Bureaucrat, whether it is renewing your passport, borrowing a book. Also, we are working on personalized services. So making the proactive government actually come true. In order to make sure that all government information is valid and reliable, we are right now developing article warehouse. This is especially relevant when it comes to COVID crisis, where we see that different government agencies often provide misleading information. But from the citizen perspective, it is important that the information is reliable and coherent across different government channels. And Bureaucrat is one way to provide that. Similarly, we are right now in discussion of developing government mobile application. We see a trend that more and more citizens are using mobile devices, and it is widespread. Over 90% of Estonian households use mobile devices every day. And there is also kind of a tendency from different public organizations right now to develop their own mobile application. We find that it is more beneficial to create one centrally. And of course, creating means other than government information systems to interact with the government. So whether it is Facebook, Signal, and calling, this is something that we are going to develop already next year. So this has been a brief overview from my end on how we are right now utilizing AI in the government. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me or anyone else from the government. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Otto, for your overview. We have a very active participants today, so we have received already 3 questions to you. So I would take the first one over here. How can you make sure that people would trust CRET and the usage, the data usage as well?
That's a great question. So in Estonia, we are utilizing Data Tracker. So Data Tracker provides an overview of how the government actually processes and uses the data. And the overview is provided through government portal. So every citizen has an overview of how the government actually uses their data. So this is just one way to do that.
We have been talking about this data tracker also to our people that have been visiting us here at the briefing center many times, and there is always the question coming from the audience side as well, like, is there any other country who also provides a similar solution? Do you know any? Because we always have this conversation, and I haven't found out like if there is any country like that.
As far as I know, there is no other country.
Okay.
And data tracker itself is part of our strategic agenda. So even though right now not all information systems utilize data tracker, our goal for 2030 is that all government information systems utilize data tracker. So there is full transparency on how government processes data.
But can we also see how many people actually look at that information yearly or daily or in a way?
We do have that statistics. So it's around 30,000 people each month.
Okay.
So not a lot, but the awareness is raising right now.
But I would say having this number not too big shows that there's a trust, so that I don't need to go and like check it out all the time. So I would say that this is actually the positive side. Speaking about the other countries, there's also a question coming here. Are there any other countries that you would bring out as an example for Estonia, as well as the other countries in terms of the AI side, so that some country that we look up for and they have been very successful, and we're maybe some way like collaborating with them and also learning from each other?
Absolutely. So Finland is just one of them. I presented what we are doing in regards to bureaucrats. Finland is right now developing Aurora AI, which is their version of bureaucrat, so virtual assistant. And we are actively collaborating with Finland. We are discussing similar things with Canada, Netherlands, Belgium. So there's a lot of collaboration going on.
Yeah, I think that's great again, because we can learn from each other, like also lessons and mistakes by the development side. And I'm pretty sure also, because some of the companies that are going to speak also here today are not providing also solutions to Estonians, but also in so many other countries. So definitely having this kind of international collaboration is essential. And I would take the last question. So you partly already talked about this, but maybe I would just turn it the other way around. So what are the biggest goals and trends for you in the next few years? And I would maybe put it in a way that what's your own biggest goal by working in your position, and when it comes to the AI, what's your favorite project that you're currently working on?
I think it would be wrong me to say not to say bureaucrat, and the hope is that by next year already we would have over 10 different agencies that have utilized bureaucrat, and by 2023 I hope that it's 20 and we provide more actively different services and make the government experience the best possible. So I think that's one of the kind of biggest goals right now.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So as we can see, as I promised, that Estonia really do have very ambitious plans by using the AI technology, and I hope Ott's presentation also made it a little bit more clear for you. Now I'm happy to introduce our next speaker, who is Christian Janssons, and he is the CEO and co-founder of a company called MindTitan.
Hi, I am Christian, CEO and co-founder of MindTitan, a company that solves business problems through advanced AI and machine learning solutions. We aim to be the best at making organizations AI-driven. Our vision is based on turnkey AI solutions and end-to-end support, from defining an AI strategy, working with your data, applications and infrastructure, to piloting and scaling the solutions. Where appropriate, we also offer existing tools from our suite of products. Focusing on corporates, startups and public sector, we have built various solutions based on computer vision, natural language processing, speech recognition and other predictive models. In fact, we have achieved an 85% success rate in more than 50 delivered AI projects, which is immense compared to the industry average, where 85% of the AI projects fail. If you're looking for an AI solution that will actually solve your problem, let's talk.
Hi there, I'm the guy from the video, but today with a different shirt, and I'm here to tell you a short story. Loss of tax revenue is a major global issue, and countries around the world are literally losing billions every year. And Estonia is no exception in this. In a small but highly digitized country, we're still losing more than 100 million every year. And that's where we come in. MindTitan has developed numerous AI solutions for the Estonian public sector. Before we came in, data analytics and rule-based systems were still making baby steps. Since then, we have increased the accuracy of catching certain tax fraudsters by a massive 59%, achieving an accuracy of 97%. So I don't need to spell this out for you. The bigger the country, the bigger the potential benefits of these AI solutions could be. However, this does not mean that the peak gains can only be achieved by the public sector. Corporates with complex business processes have also seen the benefits. For example, Northern European telco Elisa, they had their backs against the wall. They needed to provide better service fast, but with limited resources, money and people at a premium. This was not an easy task. So today, they have more than a dozen AI solutions deployed and developed by MindTitan, and they can provide better customer service, they can understand the network performance better, and much, much more. And the lesson is clear. AI can provide you capabilities and insights you simply didn't have before. But AI is hard. It is not like regular software development. It is complex, it is probabilistic. AI might sound like snake oil, a pitch of pay me money and AI will probably do wonders, but it might not. This is not for everyone. AI is for those who are excited about new possibilities, about new technological advancements. AI is for those who are looking for new ways of automation and are ready to invest because old ways are simply not doing the trick anymore. And that's what we're here for. We have done it before, and we can do it for you. We have gone through the massive learning curve so that you can get results way faster than you expect. In a nutshell, MindTitan is here to use your data and the AI to make you more money than you pay us. So let's have a chat.
Thank you very much also for you. I mean, everybody would like to save money and make more money thanks to the AI technology. And of course, also if that makes the services working much more smooth as well. Again, our participants have been asking a couple of questions from you as well. So first of all, it's more like a general question, I would say. How often and why do AI projects also fail sometimes?
I would say it definitely starts from the idea validation phase. They simply don't have the necessary discussions with the business stakeholders, technical stakeholders to verify that it's actually a good idea. It can be solved by AI. And of course, the lack of AI infrastructure and experts. So they simply don't have the experience. So I would say, at least for the first projects, you should definitely get some help.
Okay, and you would be willing to help all of the people that would need that help. The second question that we have received also here is, can you bring out an example of an AI project that you have built for someone? I'm pretty sure you have built already plenty of different kind of solutions, but maybe just bring it out, like a couple of them that has been the most outstanding ones as well.
My personal favorite is definitely making AI for the education system. This is simply a very heartwarming thing to do. For example, helping the emergency service, but for example, also helping with different manufacturing processes for different companies in numerous, highly advanced countries like Germany, etc., etc.
Yeah, but do you feel that there is still a problem that people and their awareness of AI itself, like in general, like in a society, is still not there, and how we could also maybe from the government side also try to find methods to get rid of that problem? Or how do you feel like the society's approach right now to AI? Has it changed recently a lot, or how do you feel about that?
It has definitely got better, I would say, in the past year. I definitely feel a change. And I don't think everybody needs to understand, what exactly is AI and what are all the details. But when you actually, let's say, order an AI system, then there should be at least one person in the company who is, let's say, like an AI interpreter who can both understand the business side and also a bit on the AI side, so that they can be sure that they're actually ordering the right thing.
All right, thank you very much, Christian. Now we are moving over to our third speaker of today already, who is Taavi Tammiste, and he's the CTO and co-founder of a company called Faima. So we're going to have a look at their video first, and then he's going to be on the stage here.
Molly uses Faima that made her regular security cameras very smart. Yes, you heard that correctly. Faima works with your existing cameras. This means no expensive hardware setup costs or integration fees. It took Molly just a few clicks to connect the camera feeds to the platform. Faima recognizes objects, analyzes customer behavior, and offers demographic data. Connect your existing camera infrastructure to Faima.ai and get smart.
Hello, my name is Taavi, and I'm the CTO and co-founder of a computer vision company called Faima. FIMA is an AI-based computer vision platform which can turn any video or any camera stream into actionable and usable data. FIMA was founded around 2 years ago, and we founded the company because we saw that building computer vision applications was extremely difficult, it was extremely time-consuming, and most of all, it was very, very expensive. For example, if you wanted to create a computer vision application to detect cars on an intersection using a CCTV camera, that project could take around 6 months because you have to find data science resources, you have to gather data, you have to train your model, you have to validate your model, you have to implement that model on some sort of infrastructure, and then finally you have to visualize or implement some sort of third-party software to actually use the data. With FIMA, this 6 months becomes 20 seconds. All you have to do is upload your video or upload your camera stream, press a couple of buttons, and you will immediately start collecting data with FIMA. FIMA works in two main verticals. The first one being commercial real estate developers. Companies who have convention centers, large shopping malls, or mixed space real estate areas. And the second vertical we work with is out-of-home advertising. Companies who want to know what is going on near their billboards, both digital and analog. The use cases for FIMA are both long-term for strategic planning, for example, as well as short-term for real-time actions in physical environments. Think about things like if I have an area and I want to optimize my cleaning schedule, can I do this if 500 people have walked through this area? Or if I want to optimize public transport routes based on actual traffic on the streets? Or even if I have a digital billboard, what message should I show depending on what type of people are next to it? Or even just understanding the customer journey from end to end. With FIMA, you can do all of this, and you can actually do it without adding any new hardware. So FIMA is fully hardware independent. So if you want to optimize your business using video analytics, feel free to get in touch with us, and we can definitely help. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tavi, also for your overview. And definitely, I guess many people have an interest now to hear a little bit more about like how you have developed these solutions and what are the use cases. And maybe the first question that I would take over here is, are you using also face recognition, and how do you ensure the privacy of the people? Because I would say when it comes to AI, the biggest struggle that people have in their heads is like, but what about my privacy? What about the data protection side? How do you ensure that?
This was a very big thing for us when we started building FIMA, because one thing that we cut down on was the time, so 6 months to 20 seconds. But the other big hurdle that companies have is privacy. Mm-hmm. So one thing that we took inside the company is that we will never do facial recognition. We will never do license plate recognition. But on top of that, we've actually created a free-level approach to ensuring privacy, both on a GDPR level, but also even further than that. So first and foremost, on the tech stack level, we don't store any data, any video data. Only the metadata gets stored. On a process in-house, even our data scientists, our data labelers don't get to see faces, so the faces are blurred out. And we teach the AI from the neck down, which means that the AI even can't understand what a face is because it's never seen one before. And the third one is our legal side, so our data processing agreements and all these things.
Well, our participants, once again, thank you very much. There is so many questions coming in, and I like when all of you are so active here. So I will take a couple of more of them because they're very interesting here. So how has the proposal of for an AI regulation impacted your AI solution as you approach businesses? And what is your message to the policymakers about legislation of AI?
I'll start with the message because so far I think it's moving in the correct direction. The fact that we have GDPR actually provides us boundaries that we can operate within. So as long as the message is that the regulation is clear, that's good for us because we know what we can do and what we can't do. There's also an ethics side to this that we also have to handle on top of the regulation. And that's why we also are planning to put together an ethics board for this. But in terms of companies, I think that it's getting easier and easier to approach companies because of this clear regulation.
Great. And the last question, I will take it also here, is do you have any use cases of public transportation optimization to mention as well?
Yes, so one of the coolest things we did recently was we actually were measuring pedestrian traffic during the F1 Grand Prix in the Netherlands, and we were actually connecting that data with the public railway station, and we were seeing how much people were coming from the F1 Grand Prix to see if queues were forming.
Wow.
And this was happening live from a stationary drone. So there's a lot of these things that we can do.
That's very cool. Thank you very much. Now we will continue actually with the first panel discussion. So I'm delighted to give the floor to my lovely colleague Florian Marcus, who is going to start a panel discussion on a topic called AI applications of the future, and three of our experts that also delivered their keynotes here will be joining my colleague Florian. So over to you, Florian.
Hello there, and thank you so much for joining us for the first panel discussion, which is about AI applications of the future. Of course, you've already met the three speakers that have spoken in the keynote and the short pitches beforehand. So my name is Florian Marcus. I'm also a digital transformation advisor, and I'm taking care of the panels for today. You, the audience, are of course very much encouraged to also post your questions in the Q&A section. We will make sure to reach out and ask your questions to the panelists here with us today. But first of all, maybe to start us off, before we can talk about the future, what do you think are the current challenges of AI that will bring us forward over the next couple of years? Would it be data quality? Would it be the mindset of people? Where do we see the main barriers for you guys in the private sector, but also in the public sector? Maybe we want to start with you.
Yeah, I would say all of the above. There's a lot of challenges in implementing AI, from having correct data sets so that you can train unbiased AI algorithms, that they don't make mistakes. There's the mindset of people that want to adopt AI and how to sort of make them comfortable in doing that. And there's also the case of accuracy. I mean, people expect AI to be perfect. If you look at self-driving cars, people want them to make 0 crashes, but we're teaching the cars on data that are human drivers. So how you can actually do that. So I think going from this mindset of computers being perfect to computers actually making mistakes, it's very strange for us, but we need to somehow accept that.
I also, just because you mentioned this with the car crashes, we do have several companies in Estonia that deal with self-driving vehicles, and there was one that had an accident, and immediately half of the media jumped to the conclusion, oh, surely the robot must have been wrong, but it was actually the human that was that made a mistake. So I guess there is still a bit of work to be done also within ourselves to realize that, number one, of course, nobody's perfect, neither AI nor humans, but also that when in doubt, humans tend to be more frequently wrong than we like to believe ourselves. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Yeah. That was a very nice and concise answer. Thank you. What do you think?
Definitely, people are, not so trustworthy in that sense, because they have biases that, they're not so aware of. I mean, let's take, there was a thing in Israel when judges, made verdicts, and when they later analyzed those, the judges were like, no, I'm totally fair. I'm, giving, same kind of decisions all the time. But actually, there was like it was highly correlated when did they eat. So in the morning and after lunch, they were giving out, less strict decisions. And when they were hungry, then it was no, you go to jail for a very long time. So
I've had a tough day.
But they don't know, and AI won't be perfect as well. But you can understand what's going wrong, and you can improve it over time. So I would say it's better.
I think the awareness of these patterns, which is something that most humans wouldn't even know to look for. This is the beauty of machine learning, that they say, here, well, actually there's a pattern here that I don't think anyone's seen before.
There's one thing, if I can add on top
Yes.
of Christian's comment, is that that's a very good point. And what's also important is, how do you teach AI to not make mistakes anymore? Because if a person makes a mistake and they learn from it and they don't do it again, it's a lot harder to implement the feedback loop to tell the AI that don't do this mistake again. And this is very often overlooked even by companies and applications.
You can't write a line that says, please don't do pretty, please.
Yes.
Yeah, this is quite challenging. We had this conversation about AI use in court in Estonia also a couple of years ago, and there was a bit of a reaction from the people that said, oh, will the AI tomorrow make the next sentence that I have to go to jail for the rest of my life or something? Of course, like, this is also a completely different level to what we're talking about. But these sort of subconscious biases that people have, maybe one person is hungry in the afternoon, so that judge will make bad verdicts in the afternoon. Maybe one person is grumpy in the morning, so they will have the toughest sentences at 9 a.m. So there are differences between human samples and behaviors as well that can make different kinds of mistakes overall. What are your thoughts from the public sector? Where do we see the primary challenges?
So Taavi actually already covered some of the most important aspects. So from one end, it is definitely expectations. People typically, when we discuss implementing AI, think in radical terms. So the same thing with the AI judge project.
Yes.
We actually discussed order for payment procedure. And it was a really simple use case, but people were like, wow. Estonia is going to radicalize and put everyone to jail automatically. So people are kind of, their expectations don't actually match what we are able to do with AI today. And as a result, in the government, we are actively working on data literacy. So it is a basic understanding on how to carry out data science project itself, what is the importance of data, how to protect the privacy and so on. So it is the basic kind of knowledge and skills that we unfortunately today still have missing. And then we end up on the other scale. It is data governance and making sure that data is actually findable, the quality is assured, and that's a whole another kind of story, but this is one of our strategic kind of objectives right now.
So for the data governance and the data quality, I understand that that's obviously, at least for public sector services, the responsibility lies with the different agencies. When we talk about education, though, whose role is that to play? Would that be something where we say, oh, every single parent must now make sure that everybody knows how to enter data correctly and how to use a tablet and so on? Or would that be something where schools have to work harder? Is that a lifelong education thing? Where do you see the focus there?
So first of all, when we talk about on a government level, right now our ministry is also actively kind of trying to educate people when it comes to data science. And definitely it's the question of education. If we put it that only on the parents, then it would work only if the parents would only have good level of data literacy.
Right.
So we need to educate different levels of the population. We are right now carrying out one kind of active AI course directed towards primary and secondary school students, just to raise kind of the possibilities of AI and also the risks. And it is absolutely wonderful. We had a huge media plan, and within one day, even before we made it public, it was already full. Because people actually, students have so much interest in that field.
There's a hunger for this.
There's a hunger, and the similar thing happened when we came out with the data science master's program that Tartu University is offering. We actually exceeded our expectations on how many students enroll. So people are hungry for information, hungry for knowledge, and the government definitely should kind of have a role model part here.
We used to mention at the briefing center that every 10th student at university in Estonia studies something IT related. And then the delegations that come to the briefing center, they say, so everybody's a programmer here. And then it's sort of our side to say, well, actually, there's a lot more to IT than just programming. There is law, there is cybersecurity, there is the policy aspect and the education aspect, of course. So there are so many things where there's a lot of work to be done. I fully agree. Yes, you want to ask?
Yeah, I would just add that, of course, the basic education is super important, but when doing AI projects, you always have to take into account that you also learn during every AI project, because there isn't like a magical non-AI database and AI database what you can just achieve. You have to look at the problem, what you're actually trying to achieve, and then mold the data according to that, because very rarely it's the case like I can just take the data, start working with it, and it's perfect. It's always like, okay, you start looking at it and you're like, okay, let's make some adjustments into the collection process, the labeling process, and then you can move on with actually developing stuff.
Very quickly, I know you want to say something as well. Can you give us an example from your clients, like maybe where this sort of molding process was really necessary?
For example, when information comes from multiple sites and multiple systems, and every system actually had good data, but the metadata for those different systems, it wasn't unified at all, which wasn't a problem before. But when you start doing data science, AI on top of it, then you were like, oh, this is a major issue. We have to fix this. We have to unify it somehow, because then we can take advantage of all of the data, not just part of it.
Yeah.
Tao, you wanted to add
Yeah,
something?
when it comes to education, I'm not saying that every single person should become a data scientist, although we would like to have more people in our field. But one thing that is important is that because AI is a field that can go into any vertical, any sector, people need to have some sort of hygiene level to at least understand what's possible with the technology, so that A, they can protect themselves, and B, they can make better algorithms in the future so that they're more safer for the public as well.
I'm just going to jump in as well. That's completely spot on. And there is expectations that typically if we talk about the data science, that everyone should be a data scientist. But in the government itself, I have worked with both great colleagues educating actually the project managers. So helping to understand how to utilize data science without themselves being the programmers. So every project today I discussed, we are actually developing in collaboration with the private sector. So it is unimaginable that we have an army of data scientists working in the government. So we need to adapt our expectations to fit those that the market has.
Yeah. Now we got plenty of lovely questions from the audience as well. I did promise the panelists that we're not going to spend half of our time talking about the GDPR, but we will talk a tiny bit about regulations. How do you personally feel about responsibility in AI solutions? Should it stay with the developer, the user, or somebody else?
Well, from my point of view, I think
not us.
Yes, this is a difficult question always. Because GDPR is one thing, AI ethics is another thing. Both of them are very important. GDPR is Europe-based, ethics can be country-based, they can be regional. Yeah. So it's really, really difficult to answer that question. From my point of view, GDPR is a good thing because it is clear, we know what we can do, we know what we can't do. When it comes to AI ethics, it's a lot more complex, and I think it will be the same way as countries. Applications that will be built in Europe will have the AI ethics of Europe. Applications that will be built in China will have the ethics of China.
And it's again, it doesn't have to be an intentional thing. It's just the training, the subconscious. Yeah, absolutely. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, basically, I think the main things are already protected, so that's great. So it comes to the same thing. Okay, we can put the responsibility to the person who is, or the company who is developing the solution, but you have to give them some room to if there's something wrong, please fix it, because mostly they can do it. Yeah. So because then we can become better over time. So not overreact when there's like some issues, but try to understand. Of course, let them know that there is an issue so that they could fix it. So.
And to be fair, I think this is a sort of global IT problem. It's not just about AI, but or ethics like that, but it's also about cybersecurity. If your company decides to use Outlook and Outlook gets hacked, who's at fault? Is it the person who programmed Outlook, or is it the person who said, "Oh no, we should use Outlook"? So there are, it's not even about the usual trolley problem, like does the Tesla kill the driver or the passenger or something, but very basic questions around the area of cyberspace. You wanted to add something as well?
Yes.
Yes, please.
And the question itself, ethics, when it comes to AI, I really don't yet understand why it is actually a topic, because ethics, they are universal. Anyways, we should kind of human rights similarly. We should always consider that. But now if we discuss AI, then for some reason there's expectations that previously we hadn't considered human rights, but now we should do that. And similarly, I would find actually more kind of relevant to talk about the human-centric AI or some kind of requirements to make sure that the systems that we develop are actually work in the intended way. So whether it is data quality or metadata quality, work on practical things instead of making it mandatory to carry out ethical impact assessment and so on. So there is already a lot of regulation in place.
I think that's a very good point because if you look at what has happened in software development, when Microsoft was building their CRM, nobody was talking about ethics.
Yeah.
I mean, they wanted to build a tool, right? So I think with AI, it's very good to stay practical. But I think why AI ethics is coming up is that there's kind of this myth or lore in media that the technology is so scary that they want to bring this in. Although I don't think it's even to that level that it's necessary.
Absolutely, and we see the same thing with systems I introduced previously. In unemployment agency, kind of the predictions success rate for humans is much lower than by the AI itself. But the question arises only when it comes to AI. Yeah, but what about the 20% of the times when the recommendation is not working out as intended? Not about the 40% of the times that the recommendation doesn't work out for the human. So we have an inherent bias when it comes to technology. We expect everything to work 100% of the times, and it's unimaginable.
I think there is something to be said about false negatives and false positives, though. So if we talk about facial recognition software, and if a police officer at some point just says, no, the AI said this was you, and even though I can prove with other ways that it wasn't me, but the AI is 100% sure that this was my face, then we're running into problems. So we need to find perhaps a balance where the AI is not the sole decider, and arguably in some cases it should never be. But this is something that, again, I guess every country, or at least a community of countries, should decide for themselves. We are slowly running out of time because you sent too many questions. Shame on you. But we have time for one more, which I think is actually relevant for both the public and the private sector. How do you ensure and encourage your talent to remain active in your country rather than leaving abroad to Silicon Valley, etc.? I have my own answer that I will give you at the end, but I will be curious to hear yours.
Well, for us, I think Estonia is a really good test bed. The legislation for building these types of applications is very favorable. We have a very good startup culture here, which is a huge benefit. So yeah, I think this fact that we can move quickly, test applications, build things that are interesting has a huge fact on keeping our talent happy and our talent pool sort of secured at our company as well.
So if you can tell international specialists, hey, you can try out your stuff here first because regulations, they're more flexible, that can be very interesting experience.
But the downside of this is that the talent pool tends to be rather limited. So you have to sort of make sure you keep your talent happy as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you can simply do cool stuff in Estonia, both in the public and private sector as well. So big thanks to it for making it happen for the public sector at least. And let's say the community is small, so there's also very easy to ask advice from other people how to achieve things. So it's a supportive environment as well, and all the benefits Davi already mentioned. So I don't think there is an issue in keeping people in Estonia in that sense.
What I find interesting as well is we have several companies that are sort of competitors in a way, but we're all friends at the end of the day. We can still sit in the sauna together and talk about stuff, and you will see that also in the next panel, that people just get along very nicely, and because we all understand that the Estonian market is too small, but that the global market is big enough for all of us. So there's a piece of the cake to be had for everybody.
Yeah.
Yes. And we love cake, so that's good.
Estonia is not a market; it's a development hub.
Exactly. It's the test bed. Yeah. What? Your thoughts?
So, actually, I would bring the conversation to the public sector itself, and that kind of illustrates the Estonian model as a whole. So, in Estonia, we have a huge problem with finding talented people, and then the question is how we can keep them even in the government and not to go to private sector. And the answer to that is interesting projects. So you actually have an opportunity in Estonia to make a change, transform how things are carried out. And such things are not kind of too easy to do in other countries. And Estonia is really nimble and agile in that way. So if there's someone that finds some radical idea that could be implemented, Estonia is just a wonderful sandbox and testbed to do that.
Yeah, flat hierarchies and a lot of pragmatism is the sort of stuff that I take from Estonia. And also, because the viewer kindly mentioned Silicon Valley, if you've ever looked at the rental prices there, I am not interested. And also, as a German who came to Estonia 6 years ago, I can tell you that I'm spoiled with digital services and I don't want to do taxes on paper, or even when they are online, that they take several hours. So we see more and more people move to Estonia, talent from abroad, and I think this is something that both the public and the private sector will benefit from. But thank you so much for the questions from your side, and of course thank you to the lovely panelists as well. I will hand back over to my colleague Annette Numa, who will introduce the next few pitches. See you on the other side.
Fantastic, Florian. Thank you very much for leading such an insightful panel discussion. Now we're back here with different other experts also. We have 3 more experts to listen to today. And I'm more than delighted to introduce our next expert, who is no more than Lauri Ilison. And he is the CTO and co-founder of a company called Feeling Stream. So over to you.
Hey, I'm Lauri Ilison. I'm from Feeling Stream. Every time your internet connection doesn't work at home, you tend to call to your service provider. You hope that they will fix it. Actually, those service providers, they're receiving every day hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of calls about different issues from different customers. It is really challenging for them to follow every topic, every conversation, what is said over the phone between the customer and the agent. Furthermore, over the last 2 years, the volumes have grown up more than 20% because of the COVID, and everyone is remote now. It is furthermore challenging for large service providers to actually know why customers are calling them. And in order to help, Feeling Stream has built a platform that will actually follow every single word in every single conversation and unhide the actual content. We do this for spontaneous speech over the phone. We do this for regional Nordic languages, such as Finnish, Swedish, Norwegian, Danish, Estonian, Russian, and also English. And actually, if you apply this to those phone calls, you would discover that there's a lot to see. There's a lot of topics, a lot of issues that can be optimized. Especially for product managers, service heads, and head of retails, to actually feel and see what customers do and how they interact. We have found, based on our research, that 30% of the incoming calls are actually unwanted. They are not desired by the customers, either the companies. They're just calls that come in, and if you can get rid of them, it will be a huge benefit for the service. In addition to that, if you'll automate, based on the transcript on the local language, automate the agent work, you would be able to mitigate half of the interactions coming in, and you would be able to optimize 50% of the workloads in customer support. There's a lot to win. I'm Lauri, I'm from Feeling Stream, and stop losing money in customer service.
Excellent, Lauri. Thank you very much for your overview. We again do have a lot of questions coming in. Surprisingly, as I said, this Thursday everybody are very active. So I would just take the first one over here.
Please.
So what are the benefits over the competitors for you? What are your the benefits or
I think the first and the most important is the accuracy. Mm-hmm. If you can follow word by word, accurate, recognized in local languages, this is the first step. The other thing is that how easy it would be to find out the reasons why customers are calling. Just imagine if you have a full of library with books and you need to now to find out the specific type of the wordings, sentences all over the library, just like your customer service. It will be really, really difficult, but we would be able to provide that.
Great. The other question, more concrete maybe, how accurate is your ACR, so automated speech recognition model?
With a recent study we made for spontaneous speech in Finnish, we are actually outperforming Google for 25%. So this is really, really better than the baseline on the market.
That totally is, and especially with all these concrete numbers. Also, maybe the last question that we can also take from here. There is sensitive data in customer service, right? People tell where they live, also about the products they use and everything. How are you handling this kind of data security side?
Yeah, that's a very important question because there is a sensitive data, but we have solved it in a way that we actually apply the anonymization. So the conversation exposed to the internal product managers is actually anonymized. They don't need to see the names and numbers and email addresses. But if it's required, then those can be found.
Then fantastic again. Thank you for taking care of our also the data protection and our information. He's going to continue, of course, also in the panel a little later. But now we're moving on to the second speaker of this session here, and this is Carlos Paniagua. He's the CTO and co-founder of a company called Clea.
Hi, my name is Carlos Paniagua, and I'm the co-founder and CTO of Clea. And you know when you're on a company's website or mobile app and you're having some trouble getting something done, maybe you're just looking to buy some insurance or file your taxes. So you go onto the website, you log in into your account, you start all the process, and at some point you hit a problem. There is an error, or there's a part of the process that you're not sure about, it's confusing to you, you need some help. Typically, you will have to look for the phone number of that company and give them a phone call. And the problem is that when they answer, they have no idea who you are, they have no idea where you're calling from, even less what you were trying to do. And you have to start all over again from scratch. That's very frustrating for you as a customer, that's wasteful for that company, and insane because you are in front of your computer or your phone, devices that are perfectly capable of having like an audio video conversation, and yet all that context that you have built up is gone. Clea enables a rep or an agent of that company to engage and to connect with you right where you are online. They can co-pilot you into getting your problem solved so you don't have to explain yourself all over again. You can chat, you can have like an audio conversation on your computer while they guide you and solving your problem using co-browsing. So Clea is reinventing how businesses connect and how they support their customers online by building the next generation of contact center communications and making DCS, digital customer service, a reality. Our customers are typically banks, insurance companies, financial institutions in North America, Latin America, and in Europe. We have helped our customers to transform how they communicate with these customers. We have some customers that had started with 20% of the interactions being digital, and now they have 80% of those interactions happening on the website or the mobile app using on-screen voice and co-browsing. All that while keeping their NPS high and the average handling team low. So we are helping them to grow the business. I look forward for the conversation on the panel.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Carlos, also for your overview here. Again, we are now starting to answering the questions that we have received from our audience side. So the first one that I would take over here is that how does it feel for the end user to have a customer experience guided, supported by the AI?
I think it depends of the use case, and it depends of what kind of issue we are trying to solve. So that's one dimension. Another dimension is how autonomous the customer wants to be. So imagine a customer that wants to feel in control. You can build in some automation there that is non-conversational. So you can have like business logic built into an AI that will react to the customer's digital body language and maybe give some suggestions or some prompts guiding him through. On the other hand, you can have customers that are really engaged, want to have some help. So you can have some hybrid scenarios there where you combine some automation, conversational automation, and live agents.
Great. There's also a little bit longer question also coming from the audience side. For certain industries, the applications of AI can create some misconceptions about AI replacing humans and create also some kind of anxiety. What is the case for the customer service industry and for Clea?
Yeah, certainly. And in customer service, there is this misconception that by introducing bots, you can get rid of your humans. For us, or what we are advocating for is that in this years, having hybrid scenarios where you have bots assisting your customers, bots assisting your agents, and then agents jumping in the right time, you can leave to bots what they do best, repetitive stuff, and you can leave to humans what they do best, which is connect with people and really helping them.
Right. And then the last question I would like to take also here is that what are some of the examples of the impact that AI is having for customer service in the digital world?
I think the impact is a fewfold. First is creating new roles, new jobs that you have to have. Because when you design these journeys, when you build in automation into the customer journey, you need to have some people designing those journeys. Knowing where and how, when to introduce the AI and the automation. You need to have data analysts, gathering all the data to create that automation that it can be introduced later in a workflow. And while you create your digital properties, you should keep in mind how automation will fit in. And that drives a lot of technological choices and architectures, so you have to be mindful of that.
Yeah, well, definitely your solution can really make a change also for the customer experience, and of course also when we think financially for the companies as well, that they can use these solutions. All right, now I have a honor to also introduce the very last speaker of the day before our second panel, and the last speaker of today is Juhan-Madis Pukk, who is the partner at the company called Flowit. Let's have a look.
Has your company ever lost a customer? Or have you been the customer that left the company or a service provider that just didn't care about you? Well, this is the case where we come to play. Our customers usually say at least yes to one of those questions. So let me explain a bit. For example, one of our customers has 30,000 customers, and they make 300,000 sales transactions per year. They have 80 people working in the sales department. So it means that those 80 people, every person has to deal with 375 customers. So imagine the amount of data that comes in with such amount of customers, sales transactions, etc. So it is unimaginable that one person can understand their customers deep enough to understand their behavior, the patterns of the customers' behavior, and see the trends in those patterns. So what we do with that? We take the customer's historical sales data, meaning quotes and orders, and we play around with them. We add data science layers, we do the AI magic, and then this data will be smart enough to use in sales. So what are the outcomes? Let's just take an average, 30% of more spot sales, 70% of reduced churn rate, and of course 100% transparency in sales. When the AI stuff is done and we have a smart solution, we have to put it into use so the end users would use it and would need it. So of course we can do the software development then just to productize the smartness, and whether to implement it into the existing softwares that the customers already use, or develop a totally new product that would be used within our customers' premises. What would be the benefits that the end users get? So if we have productized the solution, we can see the next period's orders, meaning that we can turn the sales from reactive to proactive, very important thing. We can see the behavior patterns of our customers so that we know much more about the customers that sometimes they do themselves. And of course, when all that is done, we can at least automate part of the sales process. So this was just a scratch of the possibilities, what we can do. And of course, I would be more than glad to answer all the interesting questions now or later. I'm Johan Buch and from Flowit.
And that's why I'm here for, to ask you all the questions from you. Thanks a million for the overview, first of all. But now, again, let's get to the questions. So when we talk about like the time side here, how much time do the AI projects usually take? I know it can be very different on based on different kind of projects, but just like generally, could you bring it out at the time that the implementation process would take?
That is a very good question indeed, because I've talked to the big companies' AI leads, and the main pain is to fasten the time to market of the AI project. We had the time a couple of years ago when it took half a year in a big company for a small AI project to come into live and to start really using it and getting the benefits from it. And the goal is to get it done within a month.
All right.
Would that be possible in a big company? I think yes, if this is done, of course. But that's the goal.
All right, so then if you, or anybody wants to get the AI solution delivered in a month, then these are the guys you should reach out to. And then the second question that I also have for you is that what usually happens after you successfully have handed over the AI projects to the customers?
Again, very, very good question. What usually happens is whether they will start using it or they don't. If they start using it,
just simple.
Very simple things. If they start using it, usually they want more. They understand the capabilities and possibilities that AI brings, and then the different departments of, for example, if we start from the sales department, we end up in a inner control or production wherever. So the understanding of the possibilities grows, and of course, then they want more.
So once again, if you want these solutions to be delivered very fast, and if you want more, then I guess Flowit is also the right company to reach out to. Now I'm more than delighted to hand it over again to my wonderful colleague Florian Marcus, who is taking over the second panel discussion. And the second panel discussion is focusing on a topic of assisting humans with AI technology.
Well, can you believe it? We are back here with our second panel discussion of the day, together with Lauri, Carlos, and Johan. And of course, you, the audience, are again invited, as you have done so far, to submit your own questions and upvote other people's questions so that I can ask them to these lovely gentlemen with me here on stage. So I guess the very first thing here is that we have people only from the private sector this time, but some of you have already worked together with the government as well. I guess my first question would be, to some extent you all deal with customer experience improvement, I think it's fair to say. Some more at the back end, some more at the front end. Do you feel like different branches, different industries, whether it's the banking sector or insurance or anything like that, whether some are more open to your solutions than others, and maybe if you can also philosophize a bit why that might be the case? Johan.
Very good question. Again, like always.
Well, this is what we do at the briefing center, yeah?
I think it depends largely whether it's business to customer or the end customer or business to business. If we're talking about business to business, then at least what I see is that the customers are really eager to use the possibilities and to get better in their inner processes is one thing, and to show to others that they are innovative. It's kind of greenwashing or it's IT washing, smart washing. So that works. And if they start with the idea just to play around with the idea and they see the first benefits, then it starts getting interesting. And then usually, as I told before, they want more.
AI as a gateway drug.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
That sounds lovely. So don't take drugs, people, but do take AI every now and then.
Yes. Use AI.
Yes, please. Yes.
I believe there is an aspect of what is it that you're selling as well. There are industries where the product is something physical, right? You can see it, you can touch it. But Glia is really focused on financial services, and there, what you're selling is that relationship that you have with your bank or with your insurance company. Is intangible, is how they make you feel, how much effort does it take for me to interact with them. And I think like in that kind of industry, they're very mindful of how we can make the customer experience better, how we can make the member experience better, how we can retain them, how we can upsell them. And all that is about the experience.
I suppose that money is a highly personal thing as well. And if we would think about the insurance, I don't know, at least in my head, this is something where I think, oh, I have to do the insurance. But with money, it's like, oh, this is about my money. This is a very different emotional approach that most people have towards
and your expectations are also different, because if you have $1 million in the bank, right, you will expect a bit different experience.
Hypothetically, the
hypothetically,
of course.
Yeah, like dreaming a little bit.
Yes.
Your expectations in terms of how the relationship should feel, look like, how much effort you have to put into it, are different as well.
I fully agree that actually the relationships makes a difference here, because we have a different relationship with our financial service provider or with the government, and also the enterprises or the governments are a bit differently driven. Some of them are looking for keeping the highest experience but lowering the cost, meaning that really good automation. On the government side, there is more like managing the risk that we are exposing some answers that we should not respond to the customers, that we are saying something wrong. So we see actually in the phone calls when we apply the analytics that there are different angles, that some of the customers are looking for a quality improvement. Some of the customers or clients are looking for, especially for this experience improvement. And it's actually so little that you need to do over the phone to provide that kind of perceptional experience. It was a good result. It's just could be like some words, the same amount, but they deliver different experience. And this is different. The governments are more like on how to ensure that we don't deliver the wrong information. And even if it takes time, doesn't matter. If it's repeatable, doesn't matter. But the banks and the fintech is more like, okay, what is the actual the experience, perception that the customer got at the end? Because we need to get the customers coming back we all go back to the government, you know.
We had this conversation in the previous panel discussion as well, that you want to be sure that somehow AI provides a better result than the human would. And if we talk about the information that comes from the public sector, very often it is conflicting. Like if you have 3 help desks in a government agency, person 1 may be awesome, they've worked there for 20 years, they know all the regulations. Person 2 had a tough night last night, is still hungover. So the quality can differ very drastically, but still we have this expectation towards AI that it just does everything 100% perfectly, and maybe that's not quite.
But there can be an opportunity as well, because
how
you can you're thinking about, is it the interaction handled by the virtual assistant only or human assistant only? What about if they collaborate?
Yes.
What if the virtual assistant is there to assist the agent, who is maybe having a bad night, with suggestions, like sensing what is the tone of the conversation, kind of monitoring in a way. Not to tell the operator, the agent, what to do, but more to suggest what the right direction of the conversation should be. So I think that's what we advocate in GLIA, a collaboration of virtual assistants, live assistants. Automation is there to serve the operator, to serve the customer.
Yeah. I do have to ask, sorry, you wanted to add something?
I just wanted to say that it's the same thing for us, that we start with separate entities, AI and the person, and then we start putting them together, that AI helps the human and human helps the AI, so eventually they can be as one, that AI is a part of the process, normal part of the process of a person, and the person doesn't even notice it. So it's just logical.
I have one specific question for Lauri, just because you brought up the smaller languages during your pitch as well. So obviously different cultures are differently expressive with how they feel about things. So it's not just about understanding the words that they're saying, and maybe there are some abbreviations or anything like that, but also is what they are saying actually how they feel? So was that a challenge for you as
Definitely.
you went into...
Let me give you that kind of numerical experiment results or sample. In States, when they do the sales calls, they say that if you do 180 words per minute, you're too fast. 170 is okay. In Estonia, people speak 130 words per minute, but if you go to the Finland, not more than 110. So even with the speed of talk is something that customers might feel impolite if the agent is talking too fast or faster than they do. There are a lot of cultural things, and especially in the vocabulary. If you can track those items, maybe there are some wordings that you should actually avoid using. On the other hand, you could actually bring in some new vocabulary that actually empowers. Because actually what I see is that the AI is not replacing the humans. It will not happen in the future, but it will actually empower us. It will empower us with small items that will actually make us better actors, better presenters, better service agent to provide you experience that you are actually expecting to have, or we even exceeding that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's hopefully the role that AI can play, and all the different tools that we have at our disposal. Something that came up in my mind when you mentioned the different industries that you focus on was, in some cases of new technology, you've got these moments where one player in an industry implements it, and then all of the others are dragged down the same rabbit hole because they have to provide a similar experience to their customers because they now expect it as standard. Have you had these experiences as well, that whether it's yourself or against a competitor, that some solution was implemented and then the others approached you and said like, hey, we need something similar because this sounds really good. Have you had something like this before?
In our case,
yes.
As I mentioned, we are focused on financial services. In North America, there is the concept of credit unions,
yes.
kind of small financial institutions. And we have seen there that we're kind of setting the expectation of how digital communication should be. And that's kind of creating the following effect, like you see it once, you expect it to see it next. So yeah, certainly we are seeing more of that. particularly in scenarios where we have hybrid experiences, where you have some automation built in, and then you just look the human at the right time.
Yeah.
That makes that transition made seamlessly, set the bar very high on expectations from customers in our case.
Yeah. Did you want to add something?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's just this is something that is happening with us now because just a sample. If you set up a website, you never will make it without the Google Analytics or similar to that. You want to see what is happening there.
Yeah.
And the same approach now is actually transition to the customer conversations. You really want to follow what is there because this is the source where you can actually derive a new information without asking the customer.
Yeah.
No, without doing it, without any survey, you can actually see and feel what was the conversation. And this has been like an eye-opening for our customers, and feeling this empowerment that actually it is received from visibility. Just think about it. If you're reading a management summary, you look through the text. Okay, this was wrong, but what did they talk there?
How was the temperature in the room?
You're keen on actually to follow the conversation, and that's what we now provide for phone calls in customer service, and it will provide you a full visibility there.
Yeah. I don't know about, you wanted to add something as well, or?
If I may.
Yeah, of course, please, yes, of course.
The same thing that as one sector that we work in is logistics, and if the competitor sees that one logistics company is doing a great job understanding everything about their customers and then keeping them, then others want it as well, and really fast. Then the question is, how fast can I get it?
And how fast can you get it?
Depending. Everything depends in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Perhaps one question from my side. I don't know about you guys, but when the first chatbots started popping up in the sort of early 2010s, I've had really rubbish experiences with them. So you would say, how can I help? And then you say, I need to buy XYZ, and then it says, I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question. Please call, or help yourself some other way. And so I suppose that this put off some people who tried to be first early adopters, but the technology just wasn't there. What would you say to the people that were sort of put off by the first generation of all of these tools, where maybe the voice recognition didn't understand half of the words, or maybe the AI gave the wrong solutions or wrong help? What would you say to them? What has changed over the last 5 to 10 years where we can really say this is now demonstrably better than it used to be?
I don't know about it too much, but I know two things. That first of all, the most monetized AI solution in the world is chatbots. And the other thing is that you can get a chatbot for €1 and 5 million euros. So there is a bit of a difference.
Yeah.
Now the experts will continue.
I think that there have been great technological advances in the last few years. I think in addition to that, what I have seen is that companies are starting to understand that they shouldn't introduce bots or automation for sake of introducing bots or automation. You should have a problem that you're looking to solve, and technology at the end of the day is just a tool, right? And then in our experience, our customers are architecting not only one piece of the stack, but truly understanding how this piece fits into the big scheme of things, the customer journey in a way. So bringing automation at the right times in the right way, reading the room, reading the customer's digital body language, how they're feeling, is really important. And I think businesses now understand that a bit better, and companies like ours are trying to educate and advise the industry that way.
It's very difficult for some people, myself included, to say no to a customer, to say like, oh, this is something that XYZ cannot solve right now, or you are wasting your money here, maybe you can try X instead. So I guess this is also something where humans both fear AI and also sort of praise AI at the same time, that it can be the silver bullet that solves all of your problems. So this is, I guess, a task that all of you have to be very realistic about what you can deliver and in what time frame and where maybe the data quality needs to be better in order for you to be able to provide these things. So yeah, very, very true. Lauri.
Yeah, I would add that people over the years, people have learned that you cannot have one generic bot doing everything. Yeah. It's more than do it for a specific purpose, because it's with our kids. You know, you cannot teach them to be the doctor on physics, one by one, or to have all them doctor of physics. The other thing is that if we intentionally train them for specific task, then you can really get that kind of good experience, and it actually works really well. You know, just try out the Clia's bots; they work really well. On the other hand, the ones who are developing have learned now how to make them. It's not that simple, because the language that we use is so variable. It is so ambiguous that you don't know, the same sentence could actually mean a bit different things. And then it's not that simple to actually train them.
Yeah.
But definitely the performance has increased a lot. And now it's actually providing the business outcome if you use it in the right place, in the right scope.
We are reaching the end of our panel discussion, but we have one last question from the audience. So maybe just a very quick one-sentence answer, sort of a yes or no, and then a why. What is your experience from collaborating with government organizations? Is the receptiveness and willingness to invest into new solutions in customer service, such as AI, comparable to that of the private sector or not? Johan.
Depending on the country, governments are a bit different, and that is why it's different. But some countries like it more than others.
Can we put Estonia on that list?
Estonia, yes.
Thank you. Good. Check. That's all I wanted to know. Yes, Carlos.
Yeah, I think there is the intent of using more automation and AI. I guess the hurdles are more around security, privacy, and that kind of gets into a little bit of conflict with innovation, and that's always the challenge, right? To have the right balance in between innovating fast enough and not being blocked by protecting data and being secure.
Very true.
I would say they are equal. Both are government and private sector. They are eager, at least for the government, for the customer service analytics. We have run more than 8 pilots. We have some production setups with Estonian government offices. More than 1 million calls have been analyzed already. And we also lately extended this to a Finnish government with the Finnish Social Security Agency, run a pilot in Finnish language, fully in their premises. You know, the security is the one of their extreme issue. So they are similar. The angle is a bit different, but they really want to experiment.
The desire is there.
Yeah, the desire is there.
Good. That's all we want to hear. This is very encouraging stuff, both from the public and from the private sector. Thank you so much to the dear audience for your questions. Thank you to the panelists, of course, for joining us today, both with the pitches and for the panel discussion itself. And I will hand back over to my lovely colleague Annette Numa to wrap it all up and summarize the event.
Well, incredible, and I will continue now with all the thank yous here. So I would also, from my side, like to thank you, first of all, Florian, for leading these 2 panels, of course, also our experts who were introducing their solutions, and most importantly, everybody who joined us also to our virtual platforms today. So we're going to have the last discussion event also happening in the next month, and I do hope that this discussion based on the AI technology made you understand a little bit better why AI is such a hot topic, not only in the public, in the private sector, but of course at the same time also in the public sector, so on the governmental level. So we try to use as much as services and again to deliver the best customer experience to everybody and make everything working as efficient as possible. But before you go, I would still like you to stay with us for one more minute because there is going to be a nice video also about our Digi Expo, which is definitely the getaway to our ICT companies so that you can have a look at this. And from my side, I would like to wish you a very nice Thursday afternoon, morning or evening, wherever you had been joining us as well, and stay healthy. Thank you very much.